Welcome back. I promised you we're going to tell you 40 reasons you might not get a loan. And, it's really interesting because, well, every credit report actually has 40 reasons that your score may go down. David Murphy joins us with over 20 years in credit repair. Credit Insider Club is Pacific Northwest's leading, most experienced credit repair company, and also recognized as one of the most highly respected in the U.S. And well, welcome back, David. It's good to see you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Well, you bring such insight that it seems to be such an important facet of people's financial lives, yet nobody has a clue about.
It's true. I mean, 9 times out of 10, people will get turned down there for a loan, and they'll wind up not knowing, not having a clue what's on their credit report. And that's why I try to educate people. Get a copy of your credit report. Even if you have perfect credit, get a copy every 6 months.
And that is really just to find out what's going on. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can pop up, right? You see it all the time.
Well, the big thing now is the biggest white-collar crime is identity theft. And that's a whole different issue. But, you need to keep aware of what is showing up and to make sure that, nothing new is popping up on your credit report, whether it's a parking ticket downtown or whether it's a late pay on a mortgage.
Right. Well, people's scores go up and down for various reasons. And when people go and they see their actual credit report, there are a lot of reasons why their score may get turned down. Now, you have 40 of them, and I don't want to obviously list off 40 different items, but there's some really interesting ones on this list, and you can go to Facebook and get this list in the future, our Facebook page. But why don't we just go through and help us understand maybe what are some of the craziest reasons people get turned down for a loan and why their scores go down?
Well, one of the reasons that I think a lot of people don't realize is they think that by closing a card, it's going to help their score. And in essence, it's just the opposite. The older the card is, for the length of history that you've had it, it is the most widely used as far as your credit history is concerned. 35% of your credit history is your payment history, okay? The length of time you've had a card. The other is credit utilization. That's 30% right there. So 65% of the FICO score is made up of payment history and credit utilization.
And so when you start thinking about that 65%, there's not a lot of, that's a significant portion. And so really that credit history is making sure you make your payments on time. And you even, you mentioned the balances you carry. So what I find to be really interesting is, you talk about the 40 reasons. One of them is you have too high of a balance. The other one is you're not using your credit card enough.
Yeah. You can be turned down for a loan for not using your credit cards on a regular basis, or revolving, or not having an installment account, closing a credit card, or having a credit card closed by the credit grantor, which is something I always try and get removed or get to say closed by consumer. No, I closed it, the consumer, instead of the creditor.
And that's a big difference then, right?
It can be. You see a lot of it from not using the card. If you don't use a card for 7 years, they're going to close it down on you for lack of use. And you may be unaware, and you pull up your credit report, and the next thing you realize, it says closed by credit grantor.
So that's obviously one that's that's interesting. There's some that are really obvious on this list. The amount you owe on accounts is too high, the level of delinquency on accounts. But then you kind of get into some of these deeper ones, which seem a little crazy. Things like the lack of recent installment loan information, right? This is number 32.
Yeah.
So if you're not buying cars and TVs on installment, your credit goes down.
Couple of points. People don't realize if they go out and they go car shopping, this happens to a lot of people. If you go car shopping this weekend and you go to 4 to 5 different dealerships, they're going to go to 4 to 5 different banks. Suddenly, on a weekend, you've got 25 inquiries. Well, that's going to cost you 3 to 5 FICO points per inquiry. So now you've just screwed up your credit 50 to 100 points in one weekend.
And now you go try to buy that car a few days later, and now your scores drop, so you can't get the loan you want.
And one of the reasons code is going to be too many inquiries.
Even if you're not using the credit.
Yeah, catch 22. So when you get a mortgage report, they're going to have the 3 FICO scores. Under each FICO score, it's going to list 4 different reason codes. This is why the score is the way it is. Okay, and the reason codes, there's 40 different, so that's what you want to do first. I mean, I got a client here, he's got a 791 score, and it says
Which is essentially perfect credit.
Basically. On that credit report, yes, he's perfect. There's a collection on another credit report that's not on that particular credit report, and his score is 698. Well, that's a big difference. That's 100+ points.
Well, and it can be a big difference in the interest rates you're paying. And this is why it just seems to be so difficult for people to manage on their own.
And that's why they need to pull up a credit report. Like I said, every 6 months. You want one for free, go to annualcreditreport.com. You want credit score, you're going to pay a little bit more.
Here's some other interesting ones out of this top 40 reasons people don't get loans, or why their scores go down. Too few accounts with recent payments. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not paying your bills. That just means that you don't have anything to pay.
Yeah. Well, that's another reason why this is such a crazy system, and people don't have a clue why they're getting turned down. And that's why it's important that people know who shows up on their credit reports. And it can determine how you pay your bills. You know, whoever shows up on your credit report, you pay them first.
We're here with David Murphy, Director of Operations with Credit Insider Club Credit Repair. David, so when people are going through the process of getting a loan, it's often common for them to want to shop. You even mentioned it about going to a car lot or 5 car lots, and you're trying to figure out what financing you can get. Where would you say some good tips are then to avoid those inquiries? I mean, I guess go to your bank to get the financing as opposed to the financing department, so you can. I mean, there must be other ways so you're not just letting everybody pull your credit.
When you know ahead of time what your score is, then you have the power to go in there, whether it's a bank, whether it is a car dealership, and tell them, I don't want my credit report pulled. I want to do all the negotiation up until that point. Here's what my scores are. What kind of financing can you get? Okay, don't let them pull it randomly, because they will pull it 4 to 5 times. And if you're getting turned down at one dealership, don't think the other dealership you're going to has different information.
Got to call Pierre Money Mart.
No credit?
Yeah, whatever you have, man. You can have all 40 of these issues on your credit. I think Pierre Money Mart gives you money. Pretty cheap, though. I don't think it's very cheap. David, we have a few minutes left, or just about a minute left before we have to go to break. When people then have these issues on their credit and they turn to somebody like you to help them, what are the steps you take them through to help them improve their credit score?
First thing was we're going to educate them, okay? How to get the credit report, who shows up, determine which people don't show up on the credit report. You can be 30 to 40 days late in paying those bills, and it's not going to hurt you. But anybody that shows up on the credit report, you've got to pay them month in and month out. Okay? Secondly, we're going to determine...
Of course, unless you want to not have your power get shut off, which is a whole other issue.
I didn't say don't pay the bill. I said you can be 30 days late in paying PSE, and they're not going to shut the power.
Got it. Okay.
But determine the negative items on the credit report. Okay? If you've got a parking ticket with Alliance 1, downtown Seattle, pay it off. Okay? You zero it off, we'll get it off the credit report. But if you're trying to get out of paying a collection judgment tax lien without it being paid, it ain't going to happen. And if it does, it's going to be the Band-Aid approach, which is, I don't recommend that at all. Because whether it's 3 months or 3 years, the likelihood it's going to come back on the credit report. You zero something out, then the likelihood, once it's off, it's off.
Well, David, we have to go to break. Thank you so much for joining us. When we come back, Heather Moore is joining us, along with the rest of the crew, Michael Busaka, Faith Sheridan, and David Murphy. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Brashenomics.